Uh, hello, everyone. It's Beth Goody from Goody Goods, and I have another episode or session for my Meet the Maker series that I've been doing. And I am just so excited to have Kristy from Quiet play with us tonight. She is
Hi.
just brilliant, and I do want to thank her before we get started for sharing her time with us tonight so that we can get to know her a little bit better and ask her some fun questions. So if you have any questions that you'd like to ask her towards the end of our interview, pop them in the chat and we can get those answered later on. But thank you, Kristy, for being here. I'm so excited. Hopefully I can talk straight tonight. But would you like to give us a little brief introduction about yourself, what you do?
Yeah, sure. First, let me say thank you for having me. That's very exciting. I really appreciate the invite. And it's lovely to come and have a bit of a chat. Um, so I'm Kristy Lea from Quiet Play. My big thing is foundation piece patterns and rainbow, like you can see behind me. So that kind of sums me up is rainbow geometric designs and foundation paper piecing. So I design patterns under the label Quiet Play. In addition to that, I also design fabric for Riley Blake Designs. So I've got my third collection coming out this month called Imagine. So I'm just counting down at the moment, waiting for it to hit the shops, which is very exciting. So, and then I've got a extra part to my business as well, where I'm the creative director of Make Modern magazine. So I put all the magazine together, and we've got our next issue coming out in early July.
Oh,
So
wow.
quilting's kind of my life. So in more ways than one.
That's a good life to have, though. That's a joyous,
Yeah.
always creating things and creativity just everywhere. I love it.
It's pretty cool. I think I'm pretty lucky to call this my job. Like, I'm very fortunate. So I trained as a primary school teacher, but these days I'm like, I actually really love what I do now. I don't think I'd want to go back to teaching. This like fills my cup. I get to sew, I get to design. There's probably a lot more computer work to it than you'd actually think. It's not as much sewing, but it's a nice balance. And I just saw someone ask my accent. So I live in Australia, so I'm an Aussie.
He's
So
from
that's the
Australia as
accent.
well. I saw that and I was like, our Australian recognized your
Oh,
accent. He's from
nice.
Australia as well. That's
So
Sean.
hi, Sean. So I currently live in Queensland, where we are freezing at the moment, which is unusual for my state. Normally it's sunny all the time up here, but yeah, we're kind of freezing. So getting used to that for this sort of winter.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
down here in Kansas, it's cold here all the time. So,
Right.
yeah, it's
I
always
used to
cold.
live in Missouri, so I remember those winters.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
yeah, for a
That's really
time.
cool.
So I've been to Kansas City, but that's sort of it in Kansas. But
Oh,
yeah,
wow. We've got some family
yeah.
there. That's really cool that we have that
A nice,
connection. Did not know that about.
yeah, yeah. I lived in Pennsylvania as well, so I've done
Oh,
a
wow.
little bit of time, half a lifetime ago when I was young and full of optimism and had that ability to travel. So yeah, but,
Wow.
Tamworth, nice. I'm from originally from the mid north coast, so almost close area. So yeah, back when I was,
Wow.
yeah, I'm New South Wales by birth, but I'm in Queensland at the moment. So don't hold it against me.
How long has quilting been part of your life?
So I started when my daughter was born, and she's 12. So I probably started when she was about a year old. As a mum, I just felt like I needed something outside of my kids, just as much as I adore them. Yeah, you know what it's like? You just need an outlet of some kind. And I used to do a lot of crocheting as well. That was my creative outlet. I'd done cross stitch, all sorts of stuff. But every time I went into the craft shops, I was really drawn to the fabric. And I'm like,
Mhm.
man, I wish I could sew. And my mum used to sew clothes. And so she gave me a few basic lessons. And it probably was only a couple of months into quilting, and I discovered foundation piecing. Had no idea it was supposed to be difficult. I'm like, I'm going to do this. And so I just like jumped in, like feet first, and yeah, haven't looked back. And so I think it was about probably a year after that, I started designing my own patterns because I just found that sort of niche of going, oh, this could be fun. I really want a pattern of whatever it was, some
Yeah.
random thing. And so, yeah, and that's what started my journey, which
Oh,
was kind of
wow.
cool.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
cool. What is your favorite step in the quilting process? What is your favorite part about it?
the actual piecing. I
Yeah.
think I love, especially with foundation piecing, because it's like such a puzzle when you put things together. And like it just looks so random and messy and scruffy when you've got all the edges. And then when you actually put it together and you go, huh, it's turned out. I
Yeah.
probably really, that would probably be my favorite part. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that it's kind of like a puzzle. I'm terrible at puzzles, but
Me too.
I look at a paper piecing pattern and I see all of it together. I'm to the point now where I'm like, okay, this section goes here. It's like your brain is just putting everything together, and it's a lot of
Yeah.
fun to see it um, finished and complete, and a picture of something. You can make a picture of anything.
Right.
It's
It feels
amazing.
kind of like magic, doesn't it?
It
All these
does.
tiny random pieces. You're going, I don't understand how this goes together until it
Yeah.
does. And you're like, this is brilliant.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. But I hate puzzles. Actual
Yeah.
puzzles, I don't have time for.
Same. Too many
Yeah.
pieces. The dog runs off with a piece. The kid has one in their
Right.
mouth. You never really get
Yeah.
stuff done. It's a headache.
No. Who has time for that?
Nobody. Uh, what is your least favorite part in the quilting process?
Okay, that's easy. It's the actual quilting. So I don't really enjoy finishing the quilt. So the one I've got behind me, my gorgeous friend Leanne from Mount Vincent Quilting, she long armed that for me.
Oh,
And I love to get all my quilts long armed if I could, but
yeah.
I'm usually too impatient. I just want to get them finished. So I'm a bit of a straight line quilter. So like that one we were talking about earlier, it's
Yeah.
just straight lines. It's
It's
nothing fancy,
beautiful.
but it's done. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. I'm like, for me, because I love to spend all the time on the piecing, I really want that to shine. I want that to be the focus point of my quilts. I'm like,
Yeah.
especially foundation piecing, as you know, it's not a quick technique.
No.
It's going to take a bit of time,
Yeah.
and you want that to be the standout.
Yeah.
So for my bigger quilts, I send them out for long arming because I really hate that process. The smaller ones or the cushions, the pillows, I do myself. And I've got to say, I just got, well, I've had it for a little bit, but I finally looked through it. The Jackie Gering's book, Walk and Walk 2.0, which is all about quilting using your walking foot. So it's like for straight line quilters. And I'm
Oh
like, this
wow.
is amazing. And I've actually tried new things with it. So
Oh wow,
highly
that's
recommend that if you're a straight line quilter.
wow.
So yeah,
Thank you for
pretty
that
good.
recommendation.
Yeah,
Yeah. I would have to
it's
agree. The
handy.
quilting part with paper piecing, it's just like I've already done all the work that I want to
Right.
do. I just want to have it magically up on my wall, and
Yes.
yeah, definitely want that piecing to shine. I agree with you there.
Yeah, that's it. And I get to the point of finished piecing. I just want it finished. And like the quilting takes so long. And I'm like, I don't want to spend 3 hours quilting this. I'm like, straight line, let's get it done. So
After like
yeah.
your line, you're like, wait, am I done yet? And you've got a whole other half of your quilt. Nope.
Right. You're like,
Not
ah,
close.
yeah.
um, Describe your quilting style. Do you consider yourself to be traditional or modern or a mix of both? I think I know the answer looking at your backdrop.
I would go with modern, but I feel like there's so much of the traditional quilting that we can draw on, which is really cool. So I've just been designing my next pattern club, and I've actually looked at some traditional blocks to mix in, but made them modern. So
Yeah.
just added something to it, changed them a little bit. Um, and if I can slightly go off track, rein me back in if I go
No,
too
you're
far off
fine.
track.
You're fine.
If you have a look at this block up here, so
Yeah.
it's actually called Temple Court is the traditional name of the block. And I've done it in foundation piecing. And I've actually teamed up with two really awesome friends, Nick Bourne of Craftapalooza and Angie Wilson of Gnome Angel. And we're doing a free block event called The Sum of Us,
Oh,
which is
cool.
with, that's my Sum of Us block up there. And it's like a free block each month, but each of us is putting it out our own twist on it. So I chose this block, and then I've done my foundation piece version with the geometric center. Nick's done a hand piece version, and Angie uses templates, the From Marty Michelle templates. And so she's done her version with the templates that's traditionally pieced. So when people sign up, they basically get 3 blocks. They look similar, but they're a little bit different, but you can choose how you want to put them together. So that one, just talking on the traditional thing, that's where I sort of drew that inspiration. I'm like, because those little squares would drive me nuts in traditional piecing because they're small. And because I've done it with foundation piecing, I didn't have to cut like 1 7/8 or some awful annoying measurement. I just, picked out what I wanted from the fabric and could sew it into the pattern quite easily.
Yeah.
So long story short, I would go with, I'm a modern quilter, but absolutely love like the look of the traditional. And I really love when you can make traditional modern. That's really appealing to me.
I really like that concept though of having, a block and having are all 3 of them different, or are they the same but pieced differently?
They're similar. So we all started with the Temple Court block for that one, and then we all put our own spin on it. So the other girls might have taken some of the seams out and changed it up a bit. Like I added the geometric center on mine. Yeah. So they look a little bit different, and then they're also pieced differently. So it's like one block 3 ways.
Wow.
And then, so it's actually quite fun. And I've really loved seeing how the other girls have designed their blocks and how once we've made them, we're going, we all have the same starting point, but we've got a really cool difference to them. Yeah. So I've got a couple of posts on my Instagram as well at Quiet Play where you can see the different blocks and see how they look. So
and that's a good skill building. Like if someone was wanting to try templates or try English paper piecing or FPP, they could try it. And that's a really good resource. So if you guys are interested in that,
absolutely.
Her Instagram in the chat so you can go through her Instagram, hear what she's talking about and sign up for it.
And it's a free event, so you can join up and get the box for free. You just have to sign up to our newsletters, which we send out fun newsletters, don't worry, like mine have chickens in them, so you can sign up for our newsletters and then you also get access to other things that we offer, but you get a free pattern. Well, you end up with 6 by the end of the event, so just kind of a nice benefit.
Thank you for sharing about that. I'm looking forward to trying some English paper piecing. I'm not a hand
so hers is hand piecing, less EPP and more hand piecing is mixed jam, which I can't hand piece to save my life. I wish I could because it looks so relaxing, but it's not quite. Oh gosh, my blocks would not be square if I was hand piecing, so I really admire people who can.
Speaking of which, are there any techniques that you haven't tried yet or you're looking forward to learning? Like collage quilting?
I've not done collage quilting. There's some I think, I'd like to do that. I get a bit impatient. And I'm like, I just want to get it done. I just want to know how to do things. So I've tried different things. I've found applique is not for me. Don't have the patience. Really don't have the patience. Which is funny to say that when I spend hours and hours on a single foundation piece block, but there's applique just no.
No, thank you.
That's a hard pass.
I love that.
But most things, and I say this to a lot of people when they talk about quilting, is like I love to just give it a go because you don't know if you're going to like it until you jump in and give it a try. And same with foundation piecing, like you don't have to love it. We can still be friends if you don't love it. That's totally fine. But like give it a go. Like and same with like sewing curves. People really hate sewing curves. I'm like, no, do it. Try it. Try with a nice big curve where it's gentle. Don't go with like this one here is small in the middle. You probably can't see with the seams. Smaller is a lot harder. Go with the nice big ones and it's not so bad. Like this quilt, my rosebud one I was telling you about, you probably can't see, but the quarters centers are actually the curves in this. Oh no, sorry, not this one. This one, sorry, I've just done 2 like this. Oh, so that's really good. This one doesn't have curves, but I do have one that's this big, and because the curves are in the center, they're quite large and they're easy to sew. So the bigger the curve, the easier it is. So if you're going to give the curves a go, start with the bigger ones.
Maybe one day. I mean, I definitely understand. Like, I shouldn't be scared of it. And I know there's so many
Yeah.
people that want to try and learn FPP especially, but they're scared to get
Yeah.
started. But once you get the
Yeah.
technique down, there you're gone. You're gone. Like
Yeah.
I feel like you either love it or hate it.
Absolutely.
But if you get it and you're not scared of it and you know that you can figure it out, I feel like everyone would love it, you know?
That's exactly it. And look, I do use some curves in my piecing. Or I've got it, it's up the top of my quilt ladder. But I did the heartfelt quilt, which goes with my dream collection from last year. And it has curves in the center. And not everyone loves having curves mixed with foundation piecing. It's kind of like, oh my goodness, that's two really difficult techniques. But the beautiful thing with it is it takes out a lot of the bulk of the seams joining
Yeah.
the center of your FPP blocks.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, like, you're going to need a hammer
Yeah.
to just smash that bulk down. Whereas if I pop a curve in, you've just got like the four seams where the blocks join in the center, and it's so much tidier and finishes nicely. So there's a method to my madness. It's not simply like as a torture device. It's like for a reason.
Let's make people cry today.
Right. I'm really not trying to make you cry. I'm actually going, this is so much better. You don't need as many seams.
Yeah, you can actually quilt over it. I recently did a circular quilt and it was all FPP and it met in the center. I never would have thought of using a curve to kind of avoid that hammer.
That bulk. Yes.
That's a great idea. I never would have thought of that without you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not a torture device, promise.
It's for your own good.
Absolutely. You'll thank me later.
What advice do you have for new quilters or people about to start their foundation paper piecing journey? What would you tell them?
So it's kind of back to what I said before, I guess, is just give it a go. Like, I'm such a big fan of just jumping in and doing it. At the end of the day, it's just fabric. Like, don't get so precious that you don't want to cut up the fabric. Like, there will be more. There'll be, even if you run out of that fabric, there's going to be other fabrics that you're going to love, other lines that you're going to love. Like, just give it a go. And you don't have to show it to anyone. If it's a disaster, bury it in the backyard. No one will know. Like, it can just disappear, right? So, yeah, you don't have to document everything and go, oh, this is an epic fail. Like, that's fine. Just don't tell anyone, but give it a go. At least you can say, I've tried it. That was amazing. Or I tried it. Not for me.
Yeah.
And I think that's with any technique. Just give it a go. Yeah.
It's fun you mentioned that because up here, it's weird because it's like opposite.
I know, right?
That little red piece hanging out on my corkboard, that's actually a mess up piece. I was trying FPP for the first time, using your pattern. Your pattern was the first one I ever tried, and I kept messing it up. My husband's in the chat, and he's like, probably thinking back to that day because I would try it, and it wouldn't go well, and I would like have to go upstairs to catch a break, come downstairs. I don't want to do this. I'll never learn it. And then I come down. I'm like, I'm going to do this. It's going to work out. But I saved it as a reminder that I did something new. I did something hard.
Yeah.
I think I'd be able to do it. And then I learned it. And so I have a little bit of your
That
pattern.
is awesome.
Even though it's a complete failure, it turned into something where I learned from it. And now
absolutely.
I love FPP. I'm on the train.
That's what I like to hear. But it is that sort of thing because it's a different technique and it's a different way of sewing and even thinking about sewing. Exactly. It can be tricky and it can be a bit of a hurdle in your brain to sort of go, okay, I've got to sew on the opposite side. Okay, I've got this. It's fine. Look, I remember my very first foundation piecing one and I cut. These days, I'm a rough cutter with my fabric. I'll go, oh, yeah, this square, that'll fit. No problem. I had no idea then. I was making it up as I went. I taught myself from the get-go. And I cut all my pieces perfectly with a 1/4 inch. And I made my life so difficult. Instead of using much bigger pieces than you should use, I had them precise. And I'm like, why does, especially triangles, I'm like, why doesn't this fit? This fits when I put it like this. And I remember just that frustration and have, like you said, walk away, take a breath, mutter a few swear words, come back.
Right?
And it's just that your brain's learning something new. So it's just finding how to make it work for you, I guess, is the big thing. But yeah, I understand that frustration very well.
I think in that story, there's another really good tip for people who want to do FPP, and it's just cut bigger. Cut bigger than you think you
Yes,
need to so that you don't have to cut more and you're not wasting more fabric if you cut it big enough the first time so you're not cutting over
exactly.
and over and over. But that's
And
a
you're
really
not
good tip.
unpicking because
Exactly.
I really hate unpicking. And
Yes.
especially because when you're foundation piecing, you're using smaller stitches so that you can tear the paper away better
Yeah.
at the end. That's why we use the smaller stitches. But trying to unpick those, it's not something that's going to be at the top of your want to do list.
Yep.
Like it's not fun. So I really advocate, especially with beginners, always use a bigger piece of fabric than you think you need. And yep, you'll use up more fabric, you'll make scraps, but hang on to your scraps because as you progress and you work with smaller and smaller pieces, you can use those scraps again.
Yeah.
So it makes lots of scraps, but it's also great for using up scraps.
Yeah.
So
And you can use
use
them
that
as
bigger piece of fabric.
you can use them as filler too. Like you said, you did crochet. You could use them in dog
Yep,
beds or pillows, or you don't have to.
exactly. Exactly. That's it. They're great for stuffing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What is your all-time favorite notion?
Oh, okay. So can I cheat and say two?
Yes, you definitely can.
So, and I'm going to be a little bit cheeky because one of them is actually mine. So I have foundation piecing paper with Riley Blake Designs. Now, the reason this is a really handy notion is the paper is actually thinner than your printer paper. So when you're printing your templates on there for foundation piecing, it's easier to see through, to see the lines when you're sewing on the other side. And at the end, it tears away more easily than printer paper. It is really handy to have specialty paper, and I love it. But I also know people have a quilting budget, and sometimes you can't add in these extras. So just a tip on that, use the absolute cheapest printer paper you can find, and recycled paper is even better because it's thinner and it'll tear away more easily. Not as easily as this one, but it will. And just expect to have little bits left in your seams. But I figure they come out in the wash. I don't really get sort of hung up on that. But yeah, I will use this, especially if I'm doing a pattern with lots of small pieces. But yeah, it just makes life a little bit easier. The other notion I'm never without when I'm foundation piecing is my finger presser
Oh, wow.
from Clover. So you can see it's angled on the edge. So when you use it, you just put it down like this on your seam and you press it. So you do it as soon as you add another section of fabric and you flip it up, you just use your finger presser on it and it saves you going to the ironing board and ironing that section. So I do that on all the in-between sections when I'm piecing. And then when I've done the entire like sort of chunk of the section, then I take it to the ironing board and give it a really good press.
Oh,
But
wow.
this, I'm never without it when I'm foundation piecing. I'm lost if I don't have it. So that's my cheating answer of two and a cheeky promo for the paper.
Speaking of the paper, it's amazing if you haven't tried it yet. But I'm to ask you, what does it feel like to have your own foundation paper? Like that's your own. It's got your
Kind of
name on
surreal, right? I'm like,
it.
that's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
It's very surreal. And look, I've been so fortunate to work with the team at Riley Blake Designs. They're amazing. I can't speak highly enough of them. And when I went to them and said, hey, can we do like foundation piece paper? And they were like, yeah, let's look into it. I was like, oh, really? I was so excited. And like,
Wow.
even seeing it now, it's very cool. Or like when I get the fabric and my name's on the selvage, it's like someone pinched me. Like this was, yeah, like it was a bucket list item in quilting for me to sort of get to the point of designing and that sort of thing,
Tick, tick.
right? It was pretty, yeah, and it still is surreal. And I still get very excited, like, you know, when I still see and go, these are the ideas that are in my head and now they're in fabric and I can actually do something with them. Yeah, I feel very fortunate for that.
Speaking of your fabric, what background do you have in art? Did you go to college? Is it something you did on the side for a little bit? Tell us about that.
It's just something that I've had a passion for. So I've never done any formal training or anything like that. It was just like, I've got these ideas. I just want to put them out. And so they sort of come out in my patterns, and you'll see some of my patterns, I actually use them in the fabric design as well and kind of mix and match them like that. But yeah, so no actual formal qualifications. I did start doing a graphic design course when my children were little, but it was really hard with little kids and studying. And I was like, yeah, not for me. And so it's something where I've learned as I've gone, kind of thing. And I tell you what, there's so many tutorials out there to help you learn. And, you know, if I'm designing something, so I use Illustrator for that, for the fabric, I do a lot of Googling, like a lot of Googling. I think my whole search bar is filled up with, how do I do da, 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 in Illustrator? How do I do this in Illustrator? And so it's pretty much self-taught.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So yeah,
you're able to get to where you are now without a degree. Like, it's possible. It shows other people you don't need to go to college to get successful in what you enjoy. So I really love that. That's really cool.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the funny thing is I have a uni degree, but it's in primary school teaching, which I'm not using at all, other than, like, you know, if I'm like teaching a workshop or something, obviously, you know, lesson plans and timing and class management, that kind of comes into play. A little less, like, I was geared to children, not adults. Your class management's a little different. I don't have to put adults outside or, you know, in the naughty corner. But yeah, so I still use some of those skills, but yeah, for what I'm actually doing, it's pretty much self-taught and just sort of been a passion project, I guess, over the years. So yeah.
How long have you been designing fabric? Like, how long has that been for you?
So my first collection, called Create, came out in 2020, and I think there was about not quite, nearly a year's lead up to that. So from the time you have all the designs together, and I'd been working on designs for a while before I sort of submitted them to Riley Blake to go, can you consider this? Like, is this okay? So 2019 is when I really sort of started looking at it and I did some courses and things like that to sort of get a bit of an idea of how it all worked, what would be involved. Because as a quilter, I mean, we live and breathe fabric, don't we? So we're like, okay, this is what we love. And you know what you're drawn to in fabric. And for me, I was like, oh, I just want this as a fabric. I just need this rainbow stripe in my life, right? So yeah, it was that sort of came about, and still in my fabrics when I'm designing now, it's like, what do I really want to see in the quilting world with the designs? So I've been doing it I guess 3 years now. So my third collection's coming out, like I said, this month. And my fourth collection is in the works, which is pretty exciting.
Like, what's your involvement in the process from when you submit the design and onward? Like, what does that look like on your end?
So it's a lot of time at the computer, designing the ideas, trying to make it a cohesive collection. A big part for me is the colors, because obviously I like a bit of rainbow, but I'm very particular about my rainbow, and I like it to be well-rounded and have just the right color. So there's a lot of time spent doing that, printing out the designs to check the scale to see if that's what I want, that sort of thing. A little bit of finessing, making sure it repeats. So it's a fair bit of work that actually goes into it, and making sure it's working how you want and it's a cohesive collection. And then it gets sent to the company, to Riley Blake, and their team reviews it and goes, yep, let's go with it. And then it's back to, like, tweaking, making sure it's all good. And then you just sit and wait for quite a while until the advanced yardage arrives. The Strikeoffs arrive. And so the Strikeoffs are the first print of your design onto fabric. And designers get those to do any color corrections, or if any of the prints don't look quite right, that's our chance to fix things then before it goes and actually gets printed into what you see in the stores. So yeah, it's a bit of a process, and it can sort of take, you know, like my fabric's sort of about a year lead time from when I've designed it to when it's in stores. So yeah, you're working well ahead with this sort of thing. But it's pretty cool.
Do you have some of your own fabric with you that you'd like to share, or any
I've
I can see it
got,
behind you, but
I do have some behind me, but I've got my storyboard for Imagine, which I figured is easier because
yeah.
So as a designer, you get sent some advanced yardage to sew your samples with before it arrives in stores. So I've been sewing up lots and lots of different things, and like my fabric's like quite scrappy and messy looking, so it's not really fit to be shown to people. So I figured I've got my storyboard where it does look pretty, and you can get a bit of an idea of what will be in Imagine. So this is what goes out to the stores, so they can sort of get an idea of the collections. And you see, like, I tend to do a main print that has a big rainbow in it with all the colours. And will make such a good cheetah panel. I'm like, it'll be so good for backing quilts and everything. So with this one, now this is going to be really awkward for me holding it up. Please tell me if you can't see anything. This way. But you can see, so I've got this side, my geometric dragonflies, which is also a pattern. So they're in there, and then this one is like circles of shapes as well, and I've got a quilt pattern that mimics that as well. I've got little shooting stars as well down in here. And then over this side, you can see there's some stripes as well, more stars, some teeny little hexes, that sort of thing. So it's all rainbow. And then I'm pretty excited about this one here.
Goodness.
That was in my first collection. So this geometric rainbow this way. So it's really throwing me. So this was actually from Create, and then I contacted Riley Blake, and I'm like, any chance we could do a wide back? Because I would love to back all of my quilts in this. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. So there's a wide back coming out with Imagine.
Yes.
So I'm pretty excited about that, because this is great, like, for this way. Every time it's opposite on the camera, my spatial awareness is really poor. So
same.
Yeah, don't ask me to reverse park, right? So it's really cool because with the quilting, like, if you're doing straight lines, there's no lines on that print on the back of your quilt to go, you went crooked on that line. Like, it would just it'll blend in beautifully. So yeah, so I'm super excited about this one. I've made a couple of quilts I can show you with it, but forgive me space-wise and everything.
While you're getting situated, there was a question that I also was thinking. Do you keep any of those strikeoffs that are sent to you? Do you keep them for keepsake? Do you frame them up on the wall or something? Or
no, I've got them. I've got a dedicated pouch for each line that I keep of the Strikeoffs, because it's really exciting to sort of see your designs in fabric. And then I also keep a fat quarter bundle from each collection, and that's just it just sits in my sewing room. Maybe one day I'll unpack them and do like a big quilt with all of the different prints, or they might just stay in the plastic. And this is really silly, but I also keep the selvages from my advanced yardage, and I make something with them. So I've made like a little tub, because the Create has little bees on the selvage, Dream has clouds, and then Imagine has the dragonflies on it. So it's kind of cool to keep those as like a little bit of a keepsake. So yeah, it's just nice to have those as little mementos. I mean, if I'm still designing in 10 years and I've got like all these fat quarter bundles, come back and ask me again. I'll be like, oh, good God, take them, right? Because I'm running out of room. But for the moment, it's something that I do kind of like to sort of keep as a bit of a keepsake, I guess. Yeah, it is pretty.
You have your own fabric. That's amazing.
It is pretty amazing. Yeah, it's very surreal, and I don't take it for granted at all. Like, it's something that, it's very, very exciting. I'm very honoured that Riley Blake was willing to take my crazy rainbow ideas on board and, bring them to life. It's pretty amazing. So, yeah. So I'll see if I can on the screen. So this quilt's called Daydream, and so this one goes with Imagine, and I've just put the pattern in my shop. Let's see if I can get to the center. You can see. Oh, wow. How's that? Is that on screen?
That's beautiful. Those dragonflies are my absolute favorite. They're beautiful.
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about this one. And it was beautifully quilted. Again, my friend from Leanne from Mount Vincent Quilts. You can see it's rainbow
Yes.
thread in there, which
That's
is
pretty.
really, yeah. And then I just did a simple patchwork border around that one as well, just, yeah, as a way to show off the different fabrics. And
Yeah.
I also made this version. I've got one done in white as well, but I've need to finish binding it. It's
Oh,
sitting over there looking at me going, bind me, bind me. So that's one of the quilts that goes with Imagine. The other one, which I've also just put into my shop, is called Dragonfly Flight. And so we talked before about traditional and modern, and I really love some of the traditional designs. Like the Irish chain is one of my absolute favorite. So for this quilt, which is going to be tricky to show because this one's a bit bigger, I mixed the Irish chain around a dragonfly center. And I don't know how much of that you can see. I'm
oh,
sorry.
beautiful.
So that has it has that Irish chain in all the rainbow as
Wow.
well. So yeah, it's foundation piecing mixed with it. And there's some really cute, I don't know how well you can see, dragonflies in
Oh,
the long arm quilting.
yes. They're so
Yeah, so I
cute.
was pretty excited about that. Came together. And again, Leanne did an amazing job to get those done for
Wow.
me. Um, Now, I saw a question before. Sorry, I've missed questions. Will we have a chance to go back later and have a look? Because I
Yes.
feel bad I've not
Oh,
answered
definitely.
anything. So please forgive me. I'm new to this stuff.
I did
So,
see that Austin, he's my husband. He's in the chat. He's
yeah.
being very sweet. But he said, "What was the name of the magazine, and where can people check it out if they're interested?"
Thank you for asking about that. So it's called Make Modern, and the website's makemodern.com.au. And we're also on Instagram as at Make Modern Magazine and Facebook, wherever. So, and
Oh,
the beautiful thing, yeah, the beautiful thing with Make Modern is it's all digital. So anywhere in the world, as long as you can read a PDF, you can access the magazine. You can read it in your jammies, like that's one thing we really like. So we don't do a print version; it's purely digital, and we'll be coming up to our 50th issue early next year.
wow.
So we've been doing that for nearly 8 years now. So
Wow.
we've been around for a while, and it
That's
keeps us
amazing.
quite busy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can.
yeah.
So I guess that leads me into a question because you've got fabric designing, you've got pattern writing, you've got quilting. I'm sure you have a personal life outside of that as well, and other things that command your attention. How do you find the balance of working everything just right in your schedule? What does that look like for you?
So for me, it's a lot of to-do lists. I really love lists. So I write myself lists all the time and tick it off as I go. I have like an overall list of things I want to achieve, and it might be things like work on the next pattern club, work on like when I was doing my beginners foundation piecing course, or the next issue of Make Modern. So I've got my big general list, and then I've got my day-to-day journal where I'm like, right, this needs to be done, this needs to be done. Um, I work well with deadlines. Like that suits my brain to go,
Yeah.
okay, this needs to be done by this date. Let's get on to it. So yeah, it's a bit of a juggle. And it's sort of prioritizing and I guess triaging that list and going, that's the priority this week. Let's get stuck in. No sewing for you. You're on the computer.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it is a juggle because I've got two children as well. So, and they're teenagers. My son just got his first job. Super exciting. But I'm like, oh, dear God, that's going to be a lot more driving. So it's a juggle. My son does Army Cadets as well. So there's extra time with that. My daughter does Taekwondo. It's a juggle. Let's go with
Yeah.
that.
For
It gets
sure.
quite
You've got
busy.
a lot of things going on, but it seems like you're
Yeah.
doing really well and you're still creating through it. So that's really cool.
Yeah. Well, I figure a lot of what I'm doing, I would be doing for fun. I'm
Yeah.
just super lucky that this is my job now.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't always feel like work. Like, don't get me wrong, some parts are definitely work. Like, when you're going, okay, I've got to write up the pattern, like
Yeah.
that's not a fun part of the gig
Yeah.
so much as sewing it. But it's just that I think it's that balance, and I will know when I'm at that point going, okay, enough computer. Let's have some quality time at the sewing machine and just get that that balance back again,
Yeah.
or I'll throw in a just for fun project, and I make other designers, patterns as well. I don't just sew my own. And that's really nice as a bit of a palette cleanser, something
Yeah.
that's not FPP. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe for me, when I switch back to traditional piecing, man, it is rough. I don't have the line to sew on. I'm like, wait, did I even learn how to do this before FPP? I don't even remember. But I was
Yeah.
interested in, and you mentioned that you'll do some other patterns from other creators. Are there any
Yeah.
pattern writers that you look up to or that you're inspired by, whether it be traditional piecing or FPP patterns?
There's a few. Look, I've got, and it would be really remiss of me not to mention my
Oh no.
amazing business girls, because we've got a group where we sort of work together, bounce ideas back and forth in the business world, but we've each got a different niche in the quilting industry. So I mentioned two of them before who I'm doing the Sum of Us with. And so there's Nick from Craftapalooza, who does hand piecing, and she has such a beautiful way with scrappy fabrics. I can't do scrappy to save my life. Like, it just makes me twitch. Like, I need rainbow. Like, that just makes me happy. But yeah, the way she puts fabric together, absolutely fantastic. And it just has some really cool ideas for her hand piecing. Then there's Angie from Gnome Angel, which some people might know her from the 100 Blocks, 100 Days events. She's done those for a few years. And Angie does beautiful traditionally pieced patterns, but made modern. And that's really cool to see. And she's like the queen of fussy cutting. So she's got a book on fussy cutting as well that she put out a few years back. Does really beautiful stuff. So I love seeing what she's sort of working on. And the other one is Lauren from Molly and Mama. And she has such a sweet, soft pastel kind of aesthetic to her work. And she does a lot of EPP and embroidery and makes really cute things. So actually I've got that little rainbow over there she made for me as a gift when I moved up here. Because I met her on Instagram, and it turned out she lived in the town where I was looking at moving to 2 years ago. So I sort of contacted her and go, I'm moving to your area. Can I ask you a few questions? And now we go out for lunch dates and
That's so
talk
sweet.
business. And so I'm very lucky to have a local quilty friend like that.
Yeah.
Those girls, I sort of work quite closely with in terms of stuff. And I just love seeing what they're doing because it's very different to what I do. Angie from Gnome Angel is a fellow rainbow lover, so her work has a lot of rainbow to it, but the traditional stuff rather than the foundation piecing.
Yeah.
So I've made a few of her patterns as well. And it's because I do so much foundation piecing, it's nice to have that palette cleanser and work on something a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
I was just doing a pattern I just remember when you were talking about different techniques. I've just been doing one of Krista Moses' patterns with a little bee in it, and it's all 60-degree triangles. I'm like, I'm bad at triangles. Triangles are not my friend.
That is the cutest pattern, though. I know what you're talking about. Where they kind of
with the
all go in a
hexies.
circle. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's an adorable pattern. That's so cute.
Because I saw it and I'm like, I just want to make this. But I think I've got the 60-degree triangles out of my system now. I'm like, yep, next. It's stunning, and the pattern's beautifully written. It's just my brain doesn't work well with triangles.
Same. Yeah. Sometimes it's like you get a pattern and because I have that pattern as well, and I looked at it.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, we'll do that. We'll when
come
I
back
feel
to
confident enough to try. Sometimes you just get so intimidated when you look at something and you're like, you know what? If I actually read it and I tried it, I could possibly do it. But my mind is telling me that I don't. You know what I mean?
And you've got to go in with that headspace of, I'm going to give this a go. I keep saying, you jump in and give it a go, but you do need the brain space for it as well to go, okay. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay too. I'm like, okay, it's out of my system. I'm ready to move on. Made a cute bee. I'm happy.
So let's talk about some of the pattern writing. How did you get into writing your own FPP patterns?
So back when I was first doing foundation piecing, I just was making stuff that I wanted to see. And then I was in a B group with some girls, actually two of those who we started the magazine with, Make Modern, and we're in a group called Wombat Stew. And it was a big group where one person would pick a theme each month and then we'd all make it. And it was a foundation piece one.
Oh, wow.
So the girls started making requests and they're like, could you do a pattern of this? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And so I sort of started with that. And I found over time, so this is back when Craftsy was the place to go for patterns. And so I'd put things up as free patterns. And then I'd find I was getting more requests, or I would just design patterns I wanted to see. And people were like, I really like that. So I was like, awesome. So I took quite a few requests in the early days. And then it was a case of, I really want to make, I don't know, something random like a koala or something. And I'm like, I can't find the pattern that I love. It's time to make my own. And it's just evolved from there. And I think now my pattern club is what really pushes me. So I'm on to my 5th pattern club, will be the next one. And it's a fun challenge for myself to go, okay, we need to design 12 to 24 patterns. Let's pick a theme. Let's do it. And so it's been a process over time. And sometimes I'll just go, it was my daughter's birthday and she's really into that cottage core vibe at the moment. Yeah. And she really wanted mushrooms. I'm like, mushrooms? Okay. But I'm like, all right, I will design a mushroom pattern. And so I put it together for her with a little fairy ring of mushrooms to make a cushion for her birthday. So so the patterns have sort of evolved from that, and just learning how to put the pattern together so it's cohesive and easy for people to follow it's my hope anyway. So yeah.
I saw that pattern that you made for your daughter. You posted it, and I think did you put it in the pattern club, or you said that you were gonna?
I did.
It. I was like, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not even so in love with mushrooms, but it's so cute, and I like how a lot of your patterns have it, going in a circle. The dragonflies and the cute little It's so cute. I love your style of pattern.
Thank you.
Something
that's really lovely.
I love it.
Well, I'm trying to break out of that, but it's hard because I really love putting things in circles, and I'm like, I should do something different, and then back to the circles.
It just works. It really does. And when it's all put together block by block into a quilt, it's so eye-catching. It's so pleasing. And
thank you.
Behind it, so you've got all those colors in there too, and it's really cool. So what is the most difficult part of the pattern writing process?
I think it's making the time to do it. I try and do it pretty quickly after I've designed and tested the pattern myself, because if you let a bit of time go in between, you're like, oh, yeah, how did that go together? Doing the actual blocks, I really love. That's easy. I've got that down pat. Putting together a foundation piece pattern in that regard is fairly easy, because it's join A to B, C to D, that sort of thing. When it comes to full quilt patterns, the quilt maths, I'm not a math girl. I've got a tech editor for that, let me just say, because I'm I can't trust my brain. I'm not sure if I've added that up correctly. So I think the quilt maths is absolutely the trickiest part. And honestly, I take my hat off to those traditional pattern writers who have lots of maths, because it'd break my brain. So quilt maths.
I'm in the same boat as you, because that's not my strong suit either. So I really like how FPP, you don't have to think about all of that. You don't have to be super technical. You're fussy cutting. You're, it's usually a complete chaos, mess everywhere.
Oh yeah.
But I embrace it. I'm this is amazing. I know when I start a project for FPP, there's going to be pounds of little scraps and paper everywhere, and fabric scissors and rotary cutters. But I love the chaos of it, and I don't think as much. It's really nice, or at least thinking a different way. What was your very first pattern you ever created and published?
So my first one was called Red Herring, and it's a herringbone design. And I actually went and revisited it not long ago and reformatted it and popped it into my shop. It's a freebie. And it's just a very simple herringbone. It's quite easy piecing. And it was actually, so this is very random. It was inspired by the clutch pedal in my car. Because I remember I was jumping in the car one day, I'm like, that's a really cool pattern. And then, so I was like, I'm going to see if I can make that. And so that was my very first pattern that I sort of did. And I actually made a quilt with it, which I should have grabbed it out. It's packed away. But yeah, I actually made a pattern with it using like a charm pack or something of some designer fabric I'd bought back, 11 years ago. So yeah, that was my very humble beginnings compared to the patterns I design now. That was quite a simplistic one, but yeah, it was still fun.
Do you have like a favorite out of all the ones that you've created? Is there one that comes to mind where you're like, that was my favorite one that I've ever made?
No, because see, here's the problem, right? I will make something, I'm like, oh, this is my favorite. And then I make something else, I'm like, no, this is my favorite. And so it's a constant. So I guess I would say whatever I'm working on at the time is my favorite. Yeah, so it's like trying to choose a favorite child.
Exactly.
Depends in that moment.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. So we kind of touched on this with seeing your name on the fabric and everything, but with pattern writing, how does it feel, to log on to Instagram or on Facebook or wherever and see people making your patterns and, their interpretations, just seeing your idea out all over the world? How does that feel?
That is hands down my favorite part. Absolutely. Like, it is so humbling to me that someone's taken my pattern and made something that they're proud of. Like, to me, I'm like, that's amazing. Like, I get really excited when I see it. And like, I always try, if people have tagged me on Instagram or tagged like #QuietPlayPatterns, I always try to go and have a look so I can comment. I sometimes miss things because I'm a one-woman show here, like doing my best.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really, really love seeing how people make the patterns their own. In the recent pattern club, there's a pattern with a little robin and leaves around it, or feathers, whichever if you prefer. And a lot of people have made the robin into a different type of bird. And I'm like, that is the coolest thing ever. Like, they'll use different fabrics, or they might have added like a little tail or something.
Yeah.
And that to me is so cool. I'm like, I love that they've personalized that. Or I just love when people get really excited that, they're like, look what I made. I'm like, that is super cool. I'm like, yeah, it is. Yeah. And then people come up with color combinations I'd never think of, because I work in rainbows so much. Like, when I see something else, I'm like, I love that, because I don't have time to try out all these ideas. So to see other people do it's very rewarding part of the whole gig, I think.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your pattern clubs. We have talked about it. You said that you've done 5 so far.
Yeah.
What is that like for you? Do you tell us about the process of putting that together and where people can find to sign up? I'm sure it's on your website, so
yeah,
which is in the chat somewhere. But talk to us about how
Yeah.
you got started with the club. What prompted you to start that out?
Yeah. So I was actually chatting with my friend Angie from Gnome Angel, and she's like, you've got a big catalogue of patterns. At the time, I think I had about 150 in my shop. I've got nearly 300 now. Like, it's ridiculous. It's getting a bit out of control. Still not going to stop. And she was like, why don't you look at something like a subscription type thing? And I was like, oh, yeah. And I just kind of let the idea mull a bit. And then I was like, I actually really like the idea of designing the patterns so they can be used on their own, or they can be put together into a quilt. So it's options. Like, to me, if you just want to build up your pattern stash, this is a great way to do it. I send out 3 patterns a month. That's right, per month, because I was doing 12-month subscriptions when we first started. So we were doing it for a year's long sewing, and there'd be 2 brand new patterns and then one of my ones from the archives, just to build up that pattern stash. And the brand new ones would sort of go together to create a quilt. And so that was where I sort of started. And the first 2 in 2019 and 2020 had text and images as well. So they were a mix of patterns, and there are 24 patterns to those. I don't have those currently as like a subscription, but people can buy them as a bundle if they want to. I am slowly working on adding them to do as a self-run block of the month. Just haven't had all the time yet. I have set up, so this one behind me is called Geogems, and this was last year's Pattern Club. And so it was a 12-month one where you got a feature block and then you got a border block as well. So those are the 2 patterns per month. And I've actually set that up now as a self-run block of the month. So if people want to, and then especially with foundation piecing, it can be a bit overwhelming to go, oh, I'm going to do a foundation piece quilt. And you're like, I don't have 60 hours a day to do a foundation piece quilt. So I've set it up as a self-run one where you can sign up, and for 12 months you'll have access to the patterns to create this quilt by the end of it. Or if you're impatient like I am and want that instant gratification, you can buy them as a bundle in my shop as well. So that one I've just added to the shop, and I'm slowly working on going back and making the others as self-run block of the months as well. I've gone the opposite side again. In the garden is the current one with the water lilies. That's the one we're sort of doing at the moment. So that won't be added to the shop for a few months. I really like my Pattern Club members to feel like they have those exclusive patterns for a time, because I'm so grateful that people have joined up to the Pattern Club. Like that means a lot to me that they want to jump on board and get the patterns. So I feel like they deserve that little bit of time to work on their patterns before it's available to everybody. So in the garden, we're just wrapping up now. We've just sent out the last couple of patterns and the assembly instructions. I can't believe it's already finished. So
I know.
because it was a 6-month one, it came around quite quickly. Like the 12-month one was great, but I felt like it was hard to keep that momentum going. And I personally am not good with dragging out a project over 12 months. Like I get caught up in other things. So 6 months works beautifully for me, and I actually really enjoyed doing this one for over 6 months with the if I can pull it down without like pulling the quilt ladder.
Cute. Austin bought me a subscription for our anniversary, and so I've been part of her club for this past 6 months, and like you said, like it went by so fast, but the best feeling was knowing that date was around and I was going to see an email somewhere in my thread of, all right, this is you click this link and there's your patterns. And it was just always a good day. I'm like, yes, look at these look at these water lilies. They're so pretty. So I really enjoyed being part of the subscription and the Facebook group and everything. So I just wanted to
thank you.
If anyone was interested in joining, it's definitely worth it. So
thank you. And nice work, Austin. That's a really good gift.
Yeah.
He's learnt well.
Yes, he is.
So I'll just show you, because you might not have started on this one yet, but that's one of the most recent patterns in the garden. And I've got to be honest, it's probably one of the most complex patterns. Someone just posted their version on Instagram. And they're like, I might have miscounted, but I think it's got 222 pieces in it. I was like,
my goodness.
So sorry. But because it's got like the bees have geometric wings and like there is a lot of pieces. But the beauty with foundation piecing is once you have the technique, you can tackle pretty much any pattern. Like, just get that technique down and you're golden. And that's what I guess with the Pattern Club is I love to experiment a bit. That's where I go, let's see how this works. And look, in the garden is probably the most advanced one that I've done so far. I was really good for my next one and I dialed that back a bit. So we've gone back to a bit easier. And you can actually see a bit of a sneak peek of a couple of the blocks over here. So these two are from the next Pattern Club, which I will be launching next month. Actually, towards the end of this month, I'll have sign-ups open. Best way, if you're interested, is my newsletter, because I send out discounts just for my newsletter subscribers as well. So if you like discounts, that's the place to be. And I will be sending out a newsletter only discount for the Pattern Club that will be coming up. And we're also looking at moving to a new learning platform to host it as well, just to make it a bit more user friendly. Like, it's really important. Like, I adore my Pattern Club members, I really do, and I want them to feel like they're really getting value for it, because I'm so grateful you guys subscribe. Like, that means a lot to me. And I'm like, I want it to really feel worthwhile and have a lot of value. So I've been investigating different learning platforms to make that a little more fun and a little more intuitive, I guess, is probably the way. So that will be for the next pattern club. We'll have one that's a little more user friendly.
Ooh, I'm looking forward to seeing what's that gonna look like and everything. I'm excited.
Yeah. I'm hoping it'll work well. In my head, it looks great, but we'll see. So.
Well, let's see. I have so many questions, but I'm trying to not take a ton of your time. Thinking that maybe we can get into some fun questions and then see if any of the viewers have any questions that they would like answered. And then I'll let you go to enjoy the rest of your Saturday. It's Friday here. The rest of your Saturday. So let's do some fun ones. And if you're watching, put in your questions now. I'll go through the chat as well, but
awesome.
Put them down at the bottom.
I just sort of mentioned about my Star Wars patterns. They're all freebies as well. So if you want to grab some freebies, the Star Wars ones are a good place to start. There's a bunch of Lego ones as well. I actually contacted the Lego company and got permission to share those patterns as freebies. They were really awesome, I have to say. They were, because I was a bit nervous, because you hear stories about that sort of thing. And they were like, that's totally fine. And because of licensing, they'll always be free. But I do have other free patterns in my shop too, because I know everyone has a quilting budget. Like, I'm not going, no, come to my shop, but spend $1 billion first. Like, I want it to be accessible to everybody, regardless of your budget. So I do have freebies mixed in as well. So
One of the recent ones as well, I shared on my Instagram, but it was the sunflower that you made for Ukraine.
Yes.
So that was one that you had set up to where donations would go out. So if you're interested, she doesn't have it set up that way now, but it is, encouraged that maybe you make a little donation when you grab that pattern. It's so pretty. I made it for a swap block, and I did all Allison Glass fabric. I just
love Allison Glass.
It's so pretty.
Oh, perfect. Oh, look, I was amazed with the sunflower how that took off. And while I was really happy to make the donation, it got quite overwhelming. We hit $11,000, which was in like 2 days. It was like mind-boggling. I was like, I was hoping for like $500, $1,000, to be honest. So to me, I was like, oh my goodness. And it just got too big for me to manage personally. And so that's why we changed it. I spoke to my accountant. I'm like, how do I handle this? This is like just gone a bit out of control. And so that's why it's been changed to, it's there as a freebie, but I would love if people make a small donation. It doesn't have to be anything big. Every dollar sort of helps for the people of Ukraine. And I think we had, last time I checked, it was over 7,500 downloads of the pattern, which is mind-boggling.
It's insane.
Yeah, it absolutely is. There is also, it is Australian-based, but if you check out Make Modern's Facebook page, they've put a link on there. There's a group I think they're in Sydney, who are collecting sunflower blocks at the moment, and they're going to create like a massive, like house size kind of quilt to take to the Ukraine embassy as well, in support of the people. So they're asking for people to send in their blocks. So I know it's amazing. They've got a photo of the organisers laying on the block, some of the blocks that have been sent in, and it's just incredible. So if that's something you want to do, they want their blocks by the end of June. So if you post from America, you could just get them in time, depending. But if you have a look on Make Modern on the Facebook page, they've got the details of how to be involved. But I just thought that was such a cool idea.
Yeah, that is so cool. I got goosebumps. And that's just a testament to, as quilters, we have this gift. Like, we are able to put love and joy into the world, even when there's just terrible things going on. So I think that's just a testament to the group of quilters, like who we are, our community. And I think that's just a beautiful act.
Absolutely.
And
it's such a lovely way to give back too. And just, quilters have big hearts. It is a really beautiful thing to see. Yeah.
And I think another good thing about your sunflower pattern is, I think it'd be a really good starting off point for people. Like, it's not too difficult. I feel like it'd
Yeah.
be beginner friendly. So if you're interested in trying FPP and you've just been scared and maybe some patterns look very intimidating, go check out her freebies on her website. She has so many. Grab the sunflower pattern, maybe make a small donation, and just get in there. It's a really good pattern. I did ask your permission
Yeah.
back if I could teach it here on Instagram or YouTube, and you said, "Of course you can. Just
Yeah.
direct them to the website." So I've been contemplating doing a tutorial for that, just so people can kind of not be so intimidated and scared by it.
Yes. And just give
It's
it a go.
yeah.
Yeah. And I should say, like, I'm slowly working on videos. Videos don't come naturally to me. So I'm working on it. But I have just recently done one, which reminds me, that's on my to-do list, on my mega color-coded to-do list. I have got a video for a pattern called Heart on a Spool, which is one of my freebies. And I'll be putting the video up soon. It's just a tutorial to show how to put it together and the basics, the foundation piecing. It's very basic, just to get you started. I do have a beginners pattern club course. It's closed at the moment, but I've got it set up so you can register your interest and I can let people know when it's running. And that one we go through step by step. There's videos on everything. It very much hand holding from choosing your fabrics to how you put your blocks together. You know, it'll even be like when you make one block in one section compared to joining 4 sections together or odd angles. I've really broken that one down to make it as easy as possible. So yeah, it's closed at the moment, but I do plan to run that again in the future as well.
Thank you for sharing your expertise because, like you said, video, along with all of the 1,000 other things that you're doing, taking the time to take a video and make tutorials and make those resources available for people, thank you, because I would really love to see more people jumping in, because I really do think that once you get the technique down, you're golden.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Thank you for that available to everybody. So I guess we can do, I have one fun question. I have a couple, but we'll do
okay.
one, and then I'll look at the chat. But do you name your sewing machines? Do you have a name for your sewing machines, or no?
No, I'm only laughing because I've got one that I call the devil machine because it hates me. So, otherwise, no, I don't. Just that one machine that's boxed up in the room that I don't touch because we don't agree.
That's so funny.
But yeah.
And I do have a question from my friend Heather, and it's not technically, I guess you can make flying geese FPP, but she wants to know, is one flying geese block, just one, should it be called flying goose, a flying goose block, or
these are the important questions, right?
These are so important.
I call it a goose because I actually did that pattern. I did the flying geese in my beginners pattern club, and I'm like, geese, goose. Nope, it's singular. It should be goose. And I'm like, yeah, when you do that goose, it sounds wrong. It sounds wrong when you're doing it, but I'm like, I'm pretty sure technically it's correct. But you know what? I don't think anyone's going to pull you up if you go, I made one flying geese. So if it makes you happy, go for it.
And when you make a bunch of them, it's called a gaggle of geese. So you can say, this is my gaggle.
I totally missed that. I've missed so many opportunities. Because I really love the flying geese block. Like it's one of my favorites, and I do foundation piece it every time because I can make it so much more precise than if I traditionally piece it, and my block's wonky and sad, and it's like a goose that needs to go to the vet.
That's probably one of my favorite things, because when I'm doing traditional piecing, a lot of the times I don't have enough room to square up my block, or I'm just terrible at it. But with FPP, I can get a nice square block that fits into the rest of my quilt without wanting to tear my hair out, because I hate squaring up blocks. I just, for traditional piecing, I'm like, there's not enough room. It's short. It's too big.
Right. And then you have to remember, when you're sewing them together, you've got to fudge the seam on that section. And I've got like the memory of a goldfish. I'll get to the sewing machine and I'll be like, yeah, back to foundation piecing. Because you don't have to think.
Yeah.
So, Yeah,
That's
no,
so
I'm with you on that.
So let's look through the chat and see if there were any questions that we missed. Um,
Yeah.
Colleen says, "Thank you, Beth. I was dying to hear the answer to geese's." Austin asked, "Do your kids show any interest in quilting or creating patterns?"
So my son's a definite no on that. But he's very good. I've trained him well. Like I'll show him something, go, look what I made today. And he'll be like, that's great, mum. I'm like, well, at least I got to hear that's great. And then he'll be like, so let's talk about the army. I'm like, okay, I don't know. My daughter, however, is quite interested. She's my little sidekick. And a
Oh,
lot of quilt photos, when I've taken them outside, if they're small quilts, that's my girl behind them because she fits behind the
oh,
baby quilts. And she's great. We'll be out somewhere and she'll be like, that's a really good spot for a quilt photo, mummy. I'm like, yes, it is. And today you're my favorite.
oh, that is so
No, I don't
sweet.
actually say that second bit. I just think it. Yeah.
That's so cool.
um, no, she's got a really good eye for color. So she'll come in and make suggestions. If I've got stuff up, this is actually my design wall behind me. I just put up a pretty quilt to cover the mess. But she'll come in and she'll be like, that would look really cool there. Why don't you try this? Or I'll show her a pattern. And she's like, that's really cool. And so she can be like a little critiquey, but in a good way. Usually she has good ideas. So sometimes I'm
Oh,
like, no, just go back and play. I'm good.
that's so
But yeah.
special though that she's involved in that part of your life because I can see
Yeah.
that just continuing to evolve as she gets older and to have that special connection
Yeah.
with your mom. I would have loved if my mom sewed. I guess like a skipped generation. My grandmother quilted and my mom didn't.
Yeah. Okay.
Mother-in-law does, but it's so cool to have that relationship and learn from each other and
Yeah.
yeah.
Hopefully with your kids as they get a bit older too. My daughter used to sit on my lap when she was little while I'd sew, and she'd make requests for me to sew things. I did buy her a sewing machine for her 10th birthday, but she hasn't shown as much interest in making it herself. She just likes to criticize what I'm doing. So in the nicest possible way.
Oh, that's so sweet.
So yeah, she told me like quite a few times she plans to take over Quiet Play when she's a grown up. I'm like, all right, cool, I'm good with that.
Well, you know it's
So
going to be in
yeah,
good hands because you're going to train her well.
right,
You've already done a good job if she's scouting out quilt photo places. That's awesome.
yeah. And she knew her rainbow order by the time she was 4, so I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah. That is so sweet.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, my kiddos are pretty young, but they like to come down here when I'm working and sit in my chair. They sit in my chair.
Yes.
Oh, we're in mom's chair, and
And it's a spinny chair. Like you
um,
can't get better.
I don't know if I can crack your head open, but
Right.
that's where my mind goes. I'm like, okay, where's the rotary
Yeah.
cutter? Where's the fabric scissors? Because
Yes.
I hang them all up so they can't get to them. But
That's a good
sometimes they'll sneak
idea.
down here before I clean up, and I'm like, no, 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 don't touch anything
Don't
until
touch
I can do this
anything.
sweep and find the shanks and
Yes.
thing before you start hurting yourself or
Yeah.
anything.
I've got young nephews who are 6 and 4, and when they come over, they're like, "Can we go in your studio, Auntie Kristy?" I'm like, no. And so they'll stand right at the edge of the door and just look in because I've got lots of bits and pieces for photo
Yeah,
props and stuff. Like it looks like a fun place to
yeah,
be,
it
and like
does.
it is super fun to hang out in here, but not for a 6 and 4-year-old who could take off a limb or something.
Oh my
So
god,
I'm like, don't touch,
don't
just stay
touch.
on it, Auntie Kristy's working space.
That's so fun. Yeah, the kids like going to the fabric store. They're like, "Are we going to the fabric
Yes.
store?" Or, "Oh, that's a quilt. That's a quilt." Addington likes to play with my scraps. He'll come down while I'm
Yeah.
working and he'll take all of my scraps and put them on the floor or put them on my cutting table and arrange them. And he's like, "I'm making a quilt." And I'll give him like a
That is
little
adorable.
ruler and he thinks he's cutting fabric and everything. I
I
just think,
love that. That
so
is so cute.
maybe I'll have
Yes. You
a
have your own little sidekick.
yeah. Oh
That's
man.
brilliant.
My daughter is not too interested. She's like,
Yeah.
okay. I want to play with your scissors, but that's about it.
Right. Yes. Well, my girl likes, if I can make stuff for her and her friends. So her birthday last year, I made Biddy backpacks. The patterns by Jodie of Rick Rack. She's an Aussie designer. just really cute toys and bags, and they're like backpacks this big. Yeah, they were fun to make, but after 7, I was like, I don't want to make another backpack for a while.
I'm scared of bag making, zippers and
Yeah.
pockets and lining and all of that. That is just not in my wheelhouse. So you made 7 of those?
Yeah, but I've
Oh,
got to be honest, I cheated and I didn't line them. It's like, I'm like, ugh, no one's gonna look inside. Let's just stuff it with some lollies.
they won't know. They won't
They
know.
won't know. They're 11. They're
There,
fine.
there's a lot of fudging that happens over here too. I do
Yes,
a lot of
yes.
So let's see. Here's a question. Austin is in the chat with some really good questions. Go, hubby.
Okay,
But
nice
he
work.
said, "Did you set out with the intent to grow a business or a label, or was it strictly for an outlet of creativity?"
That's a great question.
I know.
Very impressive.
Austin, come
So, so I have to say, it was purely a hobby initially. I was just doing what I loved while I was home with my children. When my daughter started school, when she was 5 and she was going to kindy, which is the first year of big school here, I decided that year I gave myself 1 year to either make this a business or I was going back to teaching. So that was it. That was my deadline. I was like, okay, I've got a year to see if this is viable. And I was also doing the magazine at the same time. So I was like, okay, let's see how this is going to work. Otherwise, it's back to teaching. And yeah, it all came together. And so by the time the year was up, I was like, I think I can make a go of this. And I haven't really looked back. Like every now and then I have my moments. I'm like, maybe it'd be easier working for someone else. Like you've got set hours, you can clock off. And then I think to teaching, I'm like, yeah, teaching's not really the 9 to 3 gig that people tend to think. I'm like, I think it's a pretty sweet deal where I get to sew and, I can work in my pajamas if I want to. I don't, but I've got the option if I want to. So that's the important thing.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's such a blessing to be able to do something that you truly love and turn it into something where you can work at it and it doesn't feel like a job, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Like the computer stuff and the crazy
there's some moments.
But the joy and the passion behind it, that's amazing.
Yeah. And I really love that I'm around for the kids. So if they have something on that's special at school, it's no big deal. I can just set some work aside for that time and go up to attend. Or, if they're sick, it's no big deal. Like, there's a lot of benefits to it. And like, I consider myself very fortunate to be in this position that I can do this and support my family and have that time with my kids. Because, when you're in the thick of it, when they're little, the days feel really long sometimes. But you get to the point where I'm at where they're 14 and 12. I'm like, oh, that's gone so fast. Yeah. So I'm grateful that I have the opportunity. I can be there for them before they get to the point they're moving out, and
they don't
I'll be lucky to have them over for dinner.
Oh wow, that's really special.
So,
special. We have a question from our fellow Australian, Sean. Who sews. He actually has a YouTube channel on here as well, and he does a lot of fabulous quilting. But his question for you is, do you have or planning on doing any Australian themed fabric line, Aboriginal art, or the flora and fauna?
I haven't in general. I probably wouldn't do anything Indigenous based because there are some amazing Indigenous artists out there who have some fabric lines. I can't remember the name of the company, but I have seen them. So that's probably an area I wouldn't touch. I'm not Indigenous myself, so I wouldn't feel right working on that sort of thing. In terms of the flora and fauna, like we do have some really beautiful stuff here. So I haven't given it a lot of thought, mainly because I sort of tend to think, only 1 or 2 fabric lines ahead because my brain's pretty full. But I do have some patterns though. So I've done like a geometric shape of the country of Australia. There's also one for the US, and I've got a couple of the states. I did plan to do all the states, but my goodness, you guys have a lot of states. Like coming from Australia, 6 states and 2 territories, it's a lot. It's on the maybe one day back of my head list. And I also have some Australian animal patterns mixed in as well. So definitely on the patterns, not as sure on the fabric. If that sort of explains.
Yeah, that's really
yeah.
Let's let's see. I'm just going through the chat and seeing if I missed anybody. A lot of people are saying that they are subscribed to your YouTube and they're signing up to your Instagram.
Thanks, guys. That's really
They
lovely of
really
you.
like you. All dragonflies.
Yeah, that's kind of the theme now with Imagine coming out. It's all about the dragonflies.
Yeah, it's so they're so adorable.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's see. Gotta make sure I get through all of them. I don't want to miss out on any of the questions. The work in the back on the back. Colleen is saying that your background is beautiful.
Thank you. So that's the Geogems one that we talked about. So yeah, and I used prints from Create in this. So my first fabric line. So that's where that rainbow comes from. So yeah, this one is with Imagine in here. So and I used so this is really terrible. Like how I hate quilting. My in the garden still isn't quilted. I finished this like so long ago and it's still not quilted, but it's on the list. So there is no judgment here from procrastination because I'm all over it. So this one uses Dream. So I've used my fabric collections. I'm trying to use them in each of my pattern clubs. Yeah. So Dream had like you still get bits of Dream in the shops at the moment. There's like little clouds and rainbows and things. So yeah, so I'm sort of trying to use the different fabric lines in each one. So yeah.
And for I feel like I remember there being bundles. Like, didn't someone make a bundle for your
for the pattern club?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I work with Moonlight Quilters, who are in the US, and they're an awesome fabric store. If you need fabric, Lisa and Grace are absolutely amazing customer service. They will also be doing kits for the next next pattern club rather, of Imagine for these box. Yeah. We're also talking about doing a solids kit as well, which will be with the Riley Blake Confetti Cottons Basics. Just because it's really nice to have a rainbow of basics in your stash that you don't have to think about when you put a rainbow together. Yeah. And that's probably one of the questions I get asked a lot is about putting the rainbows together. I don't really have any advice because I just do it based on what I like. Yeah. But I'm always happy, to sort of help give a bit of suggestions, if you need, because rainbows are kind of my favorite. So
Are you sure you like rainbows?
Yeah, just a little. Like I wear a lot of black and navy clothes wise, so like you wouldn't pick it. Like I don't wear a lot of rainbow at all, but on the inside, rainbow.
I love it. It's
so someone just asked about the store in the US. It's called Moonlight Quilters. So and they're based in California, I think it is. So and they've teamed up with me for the past few pattern clubs, and they're great. I'm like, so I've got a rainbow. It's got 22 colors in it. Are you up for it? And they're like, dear God, Kristy. I probably owe them a lot of vodka, to be honest.
That's so funny. You're really funny. You're cracking me up. Colleen says, we aren't supposed to have a favorite child? Question mark.
I feel like it varies in the moment.
It does. Yes, it does.
Sometimes there's a favorite, generally not. And they both think they're my favorite. I've got a boy and a girl, so I can go, you're my favorite boy, you're my favorite girl. So, yeah.
Let's see. Austin says, Beth knows what to expect for birthdays and anniversaries. Smiley face.
Nice
he's
work.
A good quilt husband. He's done a good job.
Yeah, that's impressive. He's done a very good job with links and stuff too.
Yeah,
well done.
And he doesn't do social media at all. He doesn't do Facebook, Instagram, or anything. So he's on here purely, and just because he wants to help support. It's really cool.
That is a lovely thing to see. That is brilliant. Yeah.
He's not too enthusiastic about when I'm like, hey, that'd be a great spot to go take a picture with the quilt. Do you want to for me?
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm to the end of the chat, and I'm not seeing any more questions.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you for agreeing to do this today. You absolutely could have just not even looked at my message. You have so much going on, and honestly, I was putting out my fishing thing and just seeing if anything would bite, if you would bite, and When you responded, I just like jumped out of my skin. I was like, Austin, quiet play. I'm gonna be talking quiet play. She agreed to do this. So I just really wanted you to know how much I appreciate you sharing your time and agreeing to do this. It was a lot of fun. I feel like I got to know you a lot better and the people
Yeah.
see you and learn about you and but yeah, I just wanted to say thank you 1,000 times.
Oh, well, thank you. No, I really appreciate you inviting me. I think that was really lovely. And look, I made it the whole way and I didn't swear once.
Yes, you did not. You did not swear. We did mention
Mm,
vodka, but that's allowed. We are
yeah.
adults. We can talk about vodka if we need to.
So, that's my win for today. Didn't knock the camera over. Like, that wasn't so bad.
But yeah, I had a lot of fun. Is there anything else you want to tell people or anything to wrap it up, or are you all set to go?
Yeah, I think that's it. I feel like I've talked a lot, so I'm sorry. I've thrown like a lot of
No,
information at you,
no.
probably way more than you
That's
asked
the
for.
point of this.
But
Thank
but
you.
yeah. Oh, look, thank you for the opportunity. It was lovely to have a chat and sort
Yeah,
of hang out a bit. It was kind of like we're sitting in the sewing room just hanging out. So
I
it's
know.
lovely.
Yeah, if you ever
But
want to, if you're ever doing FPP or sewing and you want a buddy, we can always hop on live and do some
yeah,
sewing.
yeah.
I do that a lot, and it's a lot of fun because the people
That's
in the
awesome.
chat get to know them and they talk to you, and you feel like you're just hanging out with the pals. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
definitely.
Yeah, that's
Well,
a lot of fun.
thank you everyone for joining tonight and watching and putting in your funny comments, your questions, and all of that. Thank you for sharing links, Colleen, Austin, Sean, Melissa, everyone. Help making this work out. I can't even talk. I can't even.
Yeah.
Stand just a little bit. I had to really come down a little bit before this interview because I knew I was going to be flubbing up on my words like crazy. But that is all for tonight. Thank you for joining. Thank you, Kristy. And I'm going to say goodnight. And I guess you're going to go continue
Yep.
your day out in Australia.
Yep. Nearly
So
lunchtime for us here. So
thank you so much. We'll
yeah,
see you
thank
guys all
you.
later on. I'm going to press the button. It's always like, wait, you hang up. No, I hang up. You hang up.
Right. Who hangs up first? Well,
Bye,
thank you so
everyone.
much. See you.